Hi guys, so you are looking at some different types of relationships today. So all week you've been looking at food webs and food chains, looking at different consequences of various things happening within that food web. Yesterday you watched Meerkat Manor, so we're going to move on and look at different types of relationships. You should have a notes paper set up like this. If you don't have that set up yet, then please do pause and get that set up. So we're going to look at three different types of interactions among organisms. So we have competition, we have predation, and we have symbiosis. Competition and predation you should be fairly familiar with, but then symbiosis, it's probably a new term for you, so we'll talk about that. Competition first. So competition is essentially living things struggling to survive. So any habitat is going to have limited resources. So it's the struggle for all of those organisms living there to get what they need. So that's called competition. So what do living things compete for? They could compete for food, water, space, maybe mates. In the episode of Meerkat Manor yesterday, you saw the two different cat groups fighting for territory. So that's another good example of competition. So how would we be able to actually see competition? If we're looking at a food web, we look at the arrows. So any two things that eat the same thing always compete. So for example, the lizard and the bird both eat the caterpillars, so they compete for that resource. The bird, yes, has another food source as well. It can eat the little snails, and it can also eat the producers, but that is one food source that the bird's going to compete for with the lizard. All right, predation. Predation is an interaction where one organism kills and eats the other. So the different types of insects and things in the show Meerkat Manor are the prey for the meerkats. So another picture for you. So the cheetah here would be the predator, the zebra would be the prey. So in a food web, we look at the arrows again to determine predator and prey. So here, the eagle would be a good example of a predator, and then the lizard, it's prey. Any other arrows, we could also look at that as well. So the eagle would be a predator for the rabbit. The eagle would be a predator for the smaller bird. Predators are always going to have various adaptations that help them kill and catch their prey. So for example, speed would be a good adaptation. Sharp, big jaws, teeth, or some way of stinging or stunning your prey. Or big claws. Prey also have adaptations that help them avoid being caught and eaten. A lot of times these are defensive mechanisms, so some type of way to scare off a predator. If you can outrun your predator, then it can't catch you. Or if you have some type of covering on your body that would make it difficult for the predator to catch you, like this pufferfish. On a graph, if we're looking at predator-prey interactions, we're always going to see sort of a correlation in the population sizes of the predator and the prey. So in our graph here, we're looking at the number of organisms for rabbits and wolves over time. So if you see anytime the rabbit population starts to increase, this would be the prey, then the wolf population would also start to increase. It does take time for that to happen, but once the wolf population starts to get really big, then the rabbit population is going to start to go down. When the rabbit population decreases, then the predator population is going to decrease. So we see this, it's like essentially like a cycle where the population sizes go up and down. There's a great video. I'm going to link this on my e-class page. This is a great video talking about predator and prey. You could watch it if you want. All right, symbiosis is the third type of relationship. So here we have a close relationship between two species where one of them is benefiting. It could be a situation where both benefit. It could be a situation where one benefits and one is not affected, or it could be one benefits and one gets hurt. So we're going to talk about those three different scenarios. So we're going to use like a thumbs up, thumbs down thing. I also have emojis on my slides. And that's going to help you hopefully remember what these different relationships are. So mutualism is our first one. So mutualism is a relationship where both species benefit. So a couple of examples. So a lot of bigger animals, you see small birds kind of follow them around. And what those little birds do is pick off bugs and insects and things from the bigger animals. In this picture here, we have a crocodile and a little bird picking things out from inside of its teeth. So essentially the crocodile sort of gets its teeth cleaned, and then the bird's getting something to eat. So that's a good relationship where both of them are benefiting. So that's called mutualism. My other picture here, we've got a bee and a flower. So bees and other types of small insects are pollinators. So flowers and different types of plants depend on those pollinators to be able to reproduce. So it's good for the bee, it's getting nectar from the flower, and it's good for the flower because it's getting pollinated. So this is a situation where we have two thumbs up. So it's good for both of the species. Or I've got two smiley faces. So write those things down. You draw these or write these also to help you remember. Commensalism is the second type of symbiosis. So commensalism is when one species benefits and the other is not affected. This one's a little bit more difficult to determine, but this is a situation where these two are good examples. So some kinds of plants can grow on other plants. We'll talk about this when we talk about rainforests pretty soon. But if a plant has trouble getting sunlight on the floor of a forest, sometimes those plants are able to grow on top of other plants. That allows them to get higher up. It allows them to get more sunlight so they grow better. So in this example, the orchid is growing on a tree limb. So it's higher up off the ground. It's going to get more sunlight. But in this situation, it's not impacting the tree at all. It's not hurting the tree and it's not helping the tree either. Another good example of commensalism is birds building nests in trees. So here the hawk is building a nest on the cactus branch. So the bird's getting somewhere to lay its eggs, somewhere for its babies to grow and develop, but it's not hurting the cactus at all. So it's another good example of commensalism. So my smiley faces, one smiley face and one just sort of, meh. Thumbs up, thumbs down. So one thumb up and then one thumb sort of in a neutral position, not up, not down. So this one's benefiting, this one's not being affected. Parasitism is the last example. So parasitism is when one organism lives in or on something else and harms it. So the organism that benefits here is called the parasite, and the organism that's being hurt is called the host. An example you're probably familiar with if you have pets, you probably give them flea medicine. So your pets are prone to fleas and ticks. They live in the fur of your pets. They bite your pets just like mosquitoes or something would bite us. So those fleas are getting somewhere to live, food to eat, a nice warm place, but they're hurting your pet by them being there because they bite your pet. So the flea there is the parasite, and your dog or cat or pet, whatever, would be the host. Another example would be a tapeworm. So this is a beef tapeworm, so it would live in cows. So the tapeworm lives inside of another organism. It's getting somewhere to live. It's getting food to eat, lots of nutrients, but it's hurting the host that it lives in. So our smiley faces here, we've got one smiley face, one sad face. With our thumbs, one thumb up, one thumb down. So the parasite is benefiting. The parasite would be the smiley face or the thumbs up, and the host would be the one that's the sad face or the thumbs down. Parasite benefits, host is being hurt. Alright, so this is what your notes should look like. Please make sure you've got definitions for everything written down. Please make sure you've got some examples. I did not put examples here in my symbiotic relationships. You need to add those. So go back and look at the slides, put an example here for each one. You could definitely put the smiley faces or the thumbs up, thumbs down also. So we'll be doing lots of practice next week with relationships. That's what next week will be all about. Probably a quiz over that next Thursday. So please do make sure you start reviewing, start studying. Tomorrow will be just a review day and a catch-up day. I'll probably do a review game just like I did last week. So be on the lookout for that on eClass. But that is all for today. Please make sure you have your notes. Maybe spend a few minutes studying those. I'll post some review videos also onto eClass.